You're watching On the Same Page.
Hello and welcome to On the Same Page. I'm your host, Kevin Cornali. I'll be talking to Joseph Fedcamp today about his book, Permanent Temporary. So, Joseph, what inspired you to write a book?
Actually, for a good 10 years, I took nothing but temporary and freelance employment positions, and the craziest stuff started happening, hilarious stories started to emerge, and people started to tell me I needed to write this stuff down for whatever reason, and little by little pieced it together, and probably about 6 or 7 years into my journey, started to actually put it together in book form and sort of, got it together. More of a hobby and just something fun to do, and then it turned into something pretty cool.
Okay, now as I understand it, you grew up in the Cleveland area.
I did.
And as I was reading through it, I noticed that you went to a variety of different locations throughout the United States and overseas, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
So if you could you elaborate a little bit about your experiences through travel and maybe jobs and stories that may be in the book?
Sure. Originally, I was working in Columbus, Ohio. I went to Ohio State, and I was working at a telephone company down there, referred to in this book as Fedcamp. Worked there for 4 years, bored out of my mind, had to get the hell out of there, and decided to try something different. I actually got laid off of that job right around the time that I decided that I wanted to quit. And they gave me a severance package, used that severance package to go to Hawaii for a couple of months. With the idea of possibly even moving there, but not anything serious. And so was paying attention to potential employment there and just to see how people live and quality of life and that sort of thing. Realized long term that it was pretty far away and there's not much going on out there once you get over the beach and the surf, and there's not a whole lot to do out there. You're out in the country. Moved back to the States, back to Columbus for several months. Ended up moving out to San Francisco, lived there for a couple of years in a variety of employment positions there, some that circled back to my old, I used to work at the Riddell's Sausage Shop in Waterloo and Lakeshore Boulevard there, close in that area, by the new Beachland Ballroom. Mm-hmm. And worked there for 4 years, and when I moved to California, I actually got a job at a butcher shop in West Marin, which is in the middle of nowhere, the Northern California coast, and that sort of planted me in a little town out there in West Marin while I took that job. And then one thing led to another. I ended up waiting tables, worked for a music magazine in San Francisco, and just we're pretty close proximity to the city, and so I was doing a lot of things out there. And then, long story short, met my wife out in West Marin, and she's actually from England. She ended up getting a job in New York, so we ended up moving to New York City, lived there for 4 years, Manhattan for a couple years, got the sense to move to Brooklyn, much better lifestyle. Don't tell anybody I said that, because all my Brooklyn friends will hate me because I told everybody to move to Brooklyn.
That's all right, I won't say anything.
There for 4 years, and had enough of the city, had enough of the job. Her job, she's in the fashion industry and rat race and long hours. I didn't know what long hours meant until she would work 15 hours straight, so 6 days in a row.
Unbelievable.
Pretty crazy. So long story short, moving from New York, moved back to West Marin, and that's where I live now. And so back and forth overseas to England, Paris, Barcelona,
very interesting.
Scotland.
What do you think is, what was the goal or the target audience in writing this book? Who did you want to reach?
Realistically, there was no target audience in the beginning, just people. But ultimately, I think what I found was that there's actually about 3 different distinct audiences. Number one, late teens or early college years, because it's really geared for that mindset. To do what I did, people in their 30s, 40s probably wouldn't take a path like this just because it's, number one, not socially acceptable. Number two, not necessarily lucrative, at least not initially. Mm-hmm. So it takes somebody who doesn't have too many ties to be able to do something like this. So potentially, that sort of age range, not really as a how-to guide or a self-help guide or anything like that, but just more along the lines of these are the kind of things that you could do as opposed to going through monotonous, boring, same old 9-to-5 jobs, and have a lot of fun doing it and get a lot of experience that can be applied later. And then another facet would be human resources departments, because for corporations or for even small companies, because there's a lot in here that has to do with quality of employment, how people treat their employees, the sort of the attitude and management skills and management styles, and how that affects people and their moods and their productivity. So really good insights in that respect, and then also foreign students who are interested in, foreign people who are interested in coming to America, because there's a lot of things that you can do in here that, I mean, obviously you need a visa to get to, to work in the States, but there's a lot of things that you can do temporarily where they can pick up people and that sort of thing. Or if the people are coming here, maybe their spouse is here and whatnot, and they want to learn a little bit more about sort of entry-level positions and how to, do sort of that. But again, not a how-to guide, just more of a example of what one person might have done,
So Permanent Temporary is the name of the book, and where would people find out more about you, Joseph Fedcamp, and where they might purchase the book or learn a little bit more about you?
Sure. Well, I have a website, permanenttemporary.com. If you can't spell that, you can go to permtempbook.com. A little bit easier. I can't even spell permanent temporary myself. And it's available on barnesandnoble.com or bn.com and amazon.com.
Okay.
So you can get it there.
And in a nutshell, if you could kind of focus everything that is in the book, encompass it into a couple short statements, what would you say?
It's about the ups and downs of temporary employment, the pitfalls, benefits, the freedom to travel, the freedom to not have the same boss the next day. If you don't like your boss, you can have a different boss the next day. Mm-hmm. It's pretty fantastic. And the ability to sort of call your own shots. I mean, if you can take certain sacrifices. And it's a humorous adventure, really, if you want a two-word sentence.
Humorous adventure. That's Permanent Temporary. That's Joseph Fedcamp. And this is On the Same Page. See you next time.